Hello, everyone, and welcome to the English Hour. In today's episode, we'll talk about the paradox of choice. Here, I've got some points in front of me to guide me throughout this discussion, and I'll be expanding on these points and I'll be explaining them in detail. First of all, generally, I think people believe that having many choices, having a lot of choices, is a good thing. Why is that? I think we believe that when we have more choices or when we have a lot of choices, it brings us a certain level of freedom. Because if there was no choice, we could not really think about human freedom or the will of people. So when we have choices in front of us, that allows us to exercise our free will, that allows us to be free in our choices. So I think that's the main reason why people believe that having many choices or having more than a choice is a good thing. And as humans, especially in the current century, I think we really want to have a lot of choices and we're used to it. For example, when you go shopping for smartphone, you have tens of choices. When you go shopping for clothes, you have a lot of choices, a lot of brands, a lot of different styles. When you shop for a computer, you have a lot of choices. Or when you go out to eat, you have a lot of choices. Maybe a few centuries ago, people did not have so many choices. People were limited in their choices. And in that regard, the people of the past and the people of today are very different because they have access to very different resources and choices. So I think the modern day brings us a lot of choices. The advances in technology, the advances in manufacturing and transportation allow us to access a greater number of goods and services. But here is the question: is having many choices always a good thing? Is it really beneficial for us? And I remember watching a TED talk about the issue of choices. And the speaker basically made the point that having too many choices is bad because it might lead to regrets. Because imagine you go out for shopping, you want to buy a pair of jeans, but you have maybe 10 different choices. You select one, you go home, and then you think about the others. Oh, maybe I should have selected the other one. Oh, this is not the best one. I should have selected a different color, a different size, and so on. So when you know that there are a lot of choices and when you stick to one, you might have afterthoughts. You might have regrets after the purchase or after that selection or after making that choice. So that's an interesting way to look at this. And additionally, I think having too many choices is not always helpful. Sometimes I find it intimidating because imagine the scenario. You need to select something. Maybe you need to select books for students, or maybe you need to select certain clothes for a ceremony or something. And you have so many choices in front of you. And as a result, you fear making mistakes, or you're afraid of making mistakes. You're not sure if your choice is the right one. It's a little intimidating and perplexing, meaning it's confusing. And sometimes I think having too many choices might be paralyzing because there is a concept called decision fatigue. So when you always have to think about different choices and try to select the best one, it really depletes your willpower, it depletes your energy, because making choices all the time and trying to find the best solution or the best choice all the time, it's an energy consuming or it's a mentally taxing task. So there's definitely an increased cost of decision making when you have a lot of choices. So I think that's why I titled this episode The Paradox of Choice, because on the one side, we think that having a lot of choices is a good thing. And I tend to agree, having choices is a good thing. But on the other side, when you have a lot of choices, it becomes a lot more difficult to make a decision. For example, simply buying a phone becomes a very difficult task because there are a lot of different brands selling phones. There are a lot of different screen sizes, a lot of different technical specifications such as the memory, storage, screen type, the size of the device, the camera, the speakers in that phone, and everything like that. So making a choice becomes increasingly more difficult as the number of choices increase. And that brings a paradox. I think the ideal choice, of course, I'm just guessing. I guess having more than a handful of choices might be really difficult in many cases. I guess probably up to 10 choices might be a good way to deal with the selection or to decrease the decision fatigue. Well, as you can see, the paradox of choice is a part of our lives. The advances in technology and manufacturing, and of course transportation, have brought us a lot more choices compared to the past, compared to the previous generations. But these advances have also made it very difficult to make the right choice and to be happy with it. Because if you did not have any other choice, you would be happy with what you have, or you would not regret making the wrong choice because you would just have a single choice or maybe a couple choices at most. But when you have a lot of choices, it makes decision making very difficult and it might lead to regrets later on. Well, that's my take on the issue of choices and how choices can become paradoxical. If you have any comments and questions, please feel free to share them in the comments below. Well, that's it for now.